Hey, Dad.
Hey, Kat, guess what?
What?
I think I found the adapter for that
Mom was saying, yes. Where was it?
at home.
In your piles of stuff that you carry around with you?
No, it was in the piles of stuff I had to sort through on the desk.
Excellent. I was going to ask you this week about the innovations that you've seen, because we have those No Digitech Trio pedals, and that's a pretty cool innovation. And then I have you sitting there next to a Roland MT90U, and that's a pretty cool
Practice
innovation.
buddy, yeah.
And then there's some new Roland product coming out next year that are some pretty cool innovations. So what is the other new stuff that you've seen over the last 49 years in this business that were interesting innovations?
Well, you have to understand that musical instruments are just that. They're instruments that are designed to make music. And in the world of electronics, in the world of taking transistorization. So I go back to the beginning of transistorization. So,
Is that a word, like a real word? Transistorization?
yeah, because they went from vacuum tubes and
To transistors.
tone generators, right, and capacitors and so on, into transistors. So instead of having to build all these huge panels of circuitry, they're able to put them onto a little board. And then, of course, after transistorization came the little integrated circuits. So they replaced entire circuit boards with little integrated circuits. And now, then what they've done with that is they've continued that system, but they've made them smaller and more powerful in our processors. So in order to get the things to move around, right, in the processing systems, they're still using the integrated circuits, but they're using multi-sided, like 128 pins on each foot, cold solder jointed. So what you used to be able to work on, like an old car, where you could tear an engine apart and transmission and put the thing back together, even machine some stuff if you needed to, you can't even find that stuff yet. I mean, it's still in the vehicle, but it's all computer controlled and so on. So same things with the instruments. So some of the things that have happened over the years is that they've also tried to do it utilizing different formats of sound production, including records, cell phone tape, right? So the actual Mellotron is just a tape looper thing, so like an 8-track, except that it had one sound on it for each key, and it created sounds like that. Some of these instruments are still being used in making musical sounds today because they're retro.
Mm-hmm. Like those coils. Those coils have come back into popularity again too. The Tesla coils, and you can make weird oscillating sounds with them and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what else is new? Or, I mean, you saw the birth of MIDI.
Yeah, actually I was at that trade show. That was a collaboration between several different companies. And unlike other companies that felt that they were in competition, the music industry got together and developed a protocol for the language that allowed it to identify the notes, just like in a pitch. If you're tuning the 8 440 cycles, that was a standardized thing, right, way back at the turn of the last century, in the 1900s. And by creating your equal temperament, then all the pianos in the world basically are tuned the same way, as are all the digital pianos, right, in the different temperaments of tuning. The idea of taking and standardizing has been in the music industry for a long, long time. So when they developed the computer and they thought, well, gee, these things are going to be able to talk to each other, musical instrument, digital interface, right, the ability to interface things together, they thought, well, how are we going to identify each note? So, for example, middle C is C3, and it has an exact hexadecimal digit that means C3. Then there's the velocity that runs from 0 to 127 or 1 to 128. It's 128 steps. 0 would be off. So if you play a keyboard and you play it as softly as you can, and you hear the sound play, you know that it started on 1. If you hear nothing, you know that they programmed to start on 0, not send in information. So then we had other effects. For example, if I decided that I was going to use an expression pedal or a volume pedal, that had to have a digit number that would identify that that's what I was doing. Your sostenuto pedal, your sustain pedal, your damper pedals, every aspect of it. And then we come up and the program changes. What happens if I come up and I hit a button on a panel, right? What number does that send? So they had all the stuff that they were trying to communicate. And the company that had worked the most with that came from the Eastone background, Roland, right? It eventually became Roland Music. And they had basically the largest writing, right, of the MIDIs already done. But then at the table, there was Kurzweil was at the table, Yamaha was at the table, and there were about 8 different companies.
I think Kawai?
No, not Kawai, Sequential Circuits was at the
Yeah.
table, right? Some of them, I think Moog was at the table in the
Yeah.
day, right? So there were all these guys, but what was sitting at that table weren't the owners or the CEOs of the company.
No.
With the exception of Roland, right, because that guy was an inventor.
Was the engineer.
That was the engineer, right, that's what he did, he invented stuff. But was the actual engineers. So when they got together and then they hashed out and they developed the MIDI thing, and everything works almost 100% except on some keyboards, middle C got shifted by an octave.
Oh,
Right, so that number digit got shifted by an octave, but there's over 128 notes, right, in note identification, so it's easy just to shift it up an octave and tell your instrument to do that, and then it would identify it anyway.
cool.
Because your transpose had to be there too.
I should have done a video just on MIDI. We've hit our time limit, so we'll come back to it next week.
All right, talk to you again. Bye for now.